Hey everybody, JCB here with the Awesomist, and you're watching the Awesomist Technology. Welcome to part 3 of this series on Interim technologies. If you haven't seen parts 1 and 2 of this series, there's links in the description below to those videos. In my first video in this series, I described interim technologies as those weird little technologies that happen in between the major generations, but ultimately get replaced. Interim technologies generally have one foot in the present and the other stepping into the future. Today we're going to focus on interim technologies that had their day in the sun, but were ultimately replaced by smartphones. So let's start by diving all the way back to the 1980s. Depending on the year, cell phones were either non-existent or incredibly expensive. Most people just didn't have them. So what'd you do if you needed to contact somebody but you didn't know where they were? Well, usually you'd end up calling all of their friends, family, and coworkers and asking if they'd seen them. And believe it or not, that's what people did for over 100 years. But all of that changed with two little words: page 'em. Pagers are probably one of my favorite pieces of interim technology. While I was too young to own one at the time, the idea always seemed kinda neat. You keep a little plastic box on your hip, and if someone needs to get a hold of you, they call your pager number, enter a callback number, and your little plastic boxes start beeping or vibrating. Press a button, the box tells you the number of the person trying to get a hold of you. People could also leave a voicemail message, which the pager would inform you of. Then all you had to do was find a phone, call your pager and listen to the message, or call them back. Or don't. I kinda miss the days when I wasn't connected to everybody all the time. There was a point not too long ago when pagers were everywhere. Teenagers had them so parents could get a hold of them in an emergency. Every parent had one at work. It wasn't just doctors and other important people, it was everybody. As cell phones became more prominent, pager manufacturers started innovating new ways to keep pagers relevant, offering various beep tones, different colors, smaller sizes. Later models even had some rudimentary text messaging. Unlike the primitive calculator spelling that could be used on all pagers, some carrier websites allowed short text messages to be sent to pagers using the simple network paging protocol, though pagers could by and large only receive such messages. The desire to send a message back is actually what led to the phenomenon of text messaging. Pagers stuck around to the mid-1990s, but as cell phones reached critical mass, offering instant two-way communication, pagers regressed back to being used by doctors and professional types who didn't want to hand out their cell phone number. Today you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone still carrying around the little plastic box that bridged the gap between landlines and cell phones. But they filled that space very well, and offered us our first glimpse of the text messaging phenomenon to come. Now of course, no video on interim technologies would be complete without mentioning portable camcorders. In the mid-2000s, video sharing sites like YouTube became incredibly popular, and suddenly there was a need for instant, on-the-go video recording capabilities. YouTube was exploding, and people wanted to be able to record videos everywhere they went. Of course, camcorders already existed, but they weren't pocket-sized and usually retailed for a few $100s. Cell phones also had video capabilities in 2006, but had limited recording length due to the storage capacity of the average cell phone of the time. There was also an issue of video quality. Here is some footage from one of the most popular cell phones in 2006, the Motorola Razr V3. It's pretty terrible. So small, portable cameras that could record high-quality footage at a reasonable price were in high demand. Needless to say, every camera maker in the world jumped on the bandwagon and started offering small, portable handheld cameras, the most famous of which was the Flip Cam. In 2006, Cisco released the first in a series of flip video cameras called the Flip Video Ultra, codenamed Chicago. This little camera recorded a 30-minute standard resolution digital video and was completely portable. The files it created were MP4, upload ready, and the camera even had built-in editing software. Retailing anywhere from $150 to $200, the Flip Cam became very popular very quickly. Soon after, HD versions of the Flip Cam became available that offered even higher quality with longer recording times and a whole host of other features. I personally never owned a Flip Cam, but I did buy this little guy. It's a JVC HD camera that records 1080p and cost me like $80 a few years ago. Why was it so cheap? Because by the time I bought this, cell phones had already taken over the market on portable video recording. When you have a cell phone that can record 1080p, bringing along a little flip cam or something just seems kind of redundant. Pocket camcorders filled our need for portable video for a few years, but were ultimately replaced by smartphones. The same fate awaited a little gadget known as TomTom. Now I don't want to pick on TomTom specifically, as there were a lot of these turn-by-turn navigation systems, but TomTom was by far the most popular due to its massive ad campaign. Early GPS devices were handheld digital maps. They told you your current location and could point you toward a set of coordinates, but turn-by-turn navigation wasn't a common feature. MapQuest and Google Maps was how most people got directions to new places. This involved going to Google Maps, typing in the address, printing out the directions, and either memorizing them or having a friend read them to you as you go. TomTom and other GPS devices like it took your friend out of the equation. Suddenly this little voice could talk to you from your dash and tell you where to go and when to turn. The later versions of TomTom would actually allow you to change the voice. Several fictional fictional characters and celebrity voices are still available for purchase on the TomTom website, including Marge Simpson and Darth Vader. TomTom and similar devices provided a little peace of mind for those of us who tend to get lost easy. All of that would last for about 5 years until 2009 when Google released the Google Maps app for Android and iOS. Suddenly you didn't need a separate piece of GPS hardware, you could just type it in your phone, set it in your cup holder, and you're good to go. Speaking of unnecessary technology, does anybody still have a netbook? These things were the precursor to today's Chromebooks and served as kind of a stepping stone in between laptops and smartphones. They use smaller, battery-efficient processors and can be taken with you anywhere you went. Unlike their clunkier laptop cousins, these things were easy to carry around. The smaller form factor and lighter weight made these popular in the days before smartphones, but their smaller size meant lower-end specs, smaller screens and keyboards, as well as less storage space than a normal laptop. Most early models only came with Wi-Fi connectivity, which limited their portability, though cell phone carriers of the time didn't offer much in the way of robust data plans. Netbooks first appeared in 2007, the same year as the first iPhone, so right away these guys were on their way to extinction. And back then the mobile internet was a ridiculous mess, unlike today where the mobile internet is so awesome and god damn it. So netbooks were a nice way to take the fully functioning, full-blown internet with you everywhere you went. You didn't have to rely on some crappy mobile version, you could see the actual web page as it was meant to be seen. They were very popular with college students and professionals because you didn't need a separate bag to carry it around, but I still bought one. The netbook filled a nice little niche in the years before the smartphone would dominate all forms of technology. Within those few short years, every laptop manufacturer in the world started pumping out netbooks, and in the beginning the price point was similar to that of a full-size, fully functioning laptop. Paying the same price for something underpowered simply because it has a better form factor seems kind of ridiculous today, but oh, right. But if your main PC is a desktop powerhouse, the prospect of buying a slightly less powerful version of a laptop that is easy to take with you seems like a decent proposal. By 2009, a mere 2 years after the netbook's debut, their days were numbered. They managed to hold on for a bit longer, like a guest who doesn't realize the party is over and it's time for them to go home. Now that doesn't mean you can't still find them for sale. Unlike some of the other technologies we've talked about, netbooks are still readily available, though the definition of netbook has kind of gotten muddied over the years, and it means different things to different manufacturers. So unless you count the newest MacBook as a netbook, the last true netbook was probably produced back in 2010 and they're just still selling off backstock. Regardless, the new ultra portables like the Chromebook put the final nail in the coffin by offering a better experience for those die-hard netbook fans who aren't content with using a phone. But for a few short, glorious years, this was how you took the internet with you. It's kind of funny how this was once considered a small form factor. Hey, do you want to read a book? I've got hundreds of them and they almost fit in my pocket. That was the selling point for devices like the Nook by Barnes & Noble and the Amazon Kindle. These devices, collectively called e-readers, were monochromatic e-ink devices that were kind of like flattened out Game Boys. Only instead of playing Tetris all night until your mom comes in and takes it away, you can curl up and read A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or whatever book was popular in 2007. Probably the final Harry Potter book or something. My point is you won't be playing Tetris on this thing. Oh my god! As you probably know, you can download hundreds of ebooks on these things and read them until your heart's content. Long gone are the days when you'd be sitting on a bus wishing you can kill some time by reading the book you never finished. While it's debatable whether or not e-readers saved the book industry, they couldn't save themselves. Within a few years, the first iPad was released, and soon after, a whole slew of tablets with e-reader apps were on the market. Companies like Amazon cannibalized their own e-readers, turning them into tablets like the Kindle Fire, and even offering e-reader apps with the same name. Why buy a Kindle when you could download the app on your tablet or smartphone for free? So once again, we have a standalone piece of technology both similar and familiar to the technology it was meant to replace, finding itself being replaced by a smartphone or tablet. Speaking of tablets, they are my final piece of interim technology on this list. In 2010, when the iPad was released, it was hailed as a revolution. Suddenly, a screen wasn't just a display, but an interface. You didn't need physical buttons to manipulate what was appearing on the screen, you just manipulated the screen. It didn't take very long for every hardware manufacturer in the world to start pumping out tablets. This was, after all, a new and exciting piece of technology that could do just about anything. You could surf the web, take photos, record and watch video, you could send messages, make phone calls. Okay, so you can't make phone calls, but this was a nice slim piece of hardware that didn't need a keyboard or mouse. You could take it anywhere with you and it fit in, well, It fit in a laptop bag or a backpack or a purse if you carried one. To be honest, tablets are too big to be carrying around with you everywhere you go. And while they work well for watching videos and surfing the web in bed, you look kinda dumb using it as a camera out in public. Again, large screens are great for watching videos, but that's why most tablets, while meant to be mobile devices, spend the majority of their lives on nightstands and coffee tables. All tablets were kind of placeholder technologies. Their larger size meant they could have higher end specs than the average cell phone at the time, but it also meant you had a less private, more obtrusive experience than you did with a smartphone. The tablet industry heard these complaints and started releasing smaller versions of their tablets. Even Apple, whose founder Steve Jobs originally mocked the idea of 7-inch tablets, eventually released the iPad mini. These smaller tablets sold well and eventually dominated the market. In fact, tablets were getting closer to the size of phones just as smartphone hardware was starting to surpass the performance of tablets. A year before the iPad mini saw the release of the first really successful phablet, the Samsung Note. This convergence of form factors, along with the added benefits of having a smartphone in your pocket, is why we're seeing the decline of tablet sales that we're seeing today. Oddly enough, Steve Jobs was actually right in his criticism of smaller tablets. He just didn't seem to realize his criticism applied to all tablets. In a 2010 earnings call, Steve Jobs said, and I quote, "No tablet can compete with the mobility of a smartphone. Its ease of fitting into a pocket or purse, its unobtrusiveness when used in a crowd. The 7-inch tablets are tweeners, too big to compete with a smartphone, too small to compete with an iPad." And he was right, but what he didn't count on was phone manufacturers meeting people halfway, with screens just large enough to appease those who were fans of the 7-inch tablet. The 5 to 6 inch screen size seems to be the Goldilocks zone for mobile devices and where most smartphones, even Apple's iPhone, seem to have settled. The size is large enough to appreciate video and other content, but small enough to not be cumbersome. And with the advent of devices like the Chromecast that allow you to stream mobile content to your television, there is even less of a need for a larger screen like the tablet on your coffee table. Tablets filled our need for mobility at a time when smartphones were new and weren't up to the challenge. But now it seems that tablet sales are kind of declining as people move on to more powerful smartphones and phablets. As is the case with most of the interim technologies we discussed in this series, tablets will continue to have their fans, and I don't expect sales of the larger tablets to dry up completely, but the revolution is over. So that's my final installment of this series on interim technologies. That is, of course, unless you have something to add. If I missed anything, or if there's a piece of technology you thought I'd talk about, make sure you leave a comment down below. As always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, keep being awesome.